Okay, so next up, let's see that how we can create tables in our HTML, right? So tables are basically a representation of data in the form of rows and columns. So we can basically create some table, and we can add some headers, we can add some data, and we can have rows and columns in our table, right? So let us see how we can create a table. So first of all, I'll just comment this out. And now when I want to create a table, I will be using table tag for that, right? Now inside this table tag, I can have different rows for me, right? So when I want to create a row, I will be using tr tag. So this tr is basically representation of one row, right? Now I can basically input the data in a row, maybe like a heading also, or maybe like a simple data also. When I'm trying to input something as a heading, it will be like bold in like you will see that as a bold and also centered, right? So that it will basically be visible like a heading. So when I want to add the heading, I will be using th tag, right? So let's just write over a heading 1, right? So as soon as I save it, you see that okay, something has been added over here. Now if I just duplicate this and I write heading 2, so heading 2 has been added over here, right? And maybe if I just add one more, heading 3, so heading 3 has been added, right? Now maybe in the next row I want to add some maybe data which are related to these headings, right? So what I'll do is I'll create another row. So I will create another row by tr tag, and now I want to add some data over here. So I will add the data with a td, right? So let's just say this will be my data 1. So you see that data 1 is basically now coming below heading 1, right? Similarly, I can add multiple datas over here. Let's say data 2, let's say data 3, and you see that all the data are basically coming in the form of table, right? Right now there is no like segregation with the lines and all, but that is something that we're gonna see. But right now what we see over here is that the data is coming in the form of a table. Like we are having a heading, and then we are having the data inside it, right? Similarly, if I want another row, I can add another tr tag, and then I can add another data. Let's just call it maybe something like dummy 1. So it is going to come below heading 1. So that's how I can create a data in my HTML, and we're going to be seeing the designing and all later on. Now I have this one attribute that I can use in order to display the borders of the table, right? So what I can do is, in this table tag over here, I can add one attribute. So the name of the attribute is border, right? So I can add this attribute border over here, and let's say if I give the value 1 and I save this, you see that the table is now basically having this bordered with some thickness around it, right? If I try to increase the value over here, let's say I say 5, so you see that the thing that you see over here, that my table visual has changed, right? If I say this is 15, so the table has now like changed again, right? So in this way we can add some border around my table, and just to make the representation of the table proper, here I have the segregation of the rows and columns, and each of the heading and the data is now coming in a cell, right? And just for the clarity, I'll just duplicate this also, and I'll say text like this, and then I have this all the values in the table. Now let's say if I want to increase my maybe some cell over a column or a row, right? So for that, what I can do is I can use these attributes that I have known as col span and row span. Okay, so let's see how they work. So let's say I am having some data value in my table, right? And I want to increase the cell, and I want the cell to be maybe expand over the on row wise, or maybe on the column wise, right? So just for example, let's say I want to take this data 1 and I want this data to expand over multiple columns, right? So what I can do is I can use an attribute over here known as col span to basically span over the columns. So if I give the value 2 over here and I save this, so you see that this data 1 is now basically spanning over heading 1 and heading 2 column. So basically the span has increased of this cell. If I say over here as 3, so now the col span has now increased a bit more, right? So Similarly, if I say that, okay, this data too, I want to increase row wise, right? So I'll say row span. And if I give some value, let's say 2, so you see that this data too is now basically taking 2 rows, right? So now the data too is expanded row wise on 2 cells. So that is how you can use your call span and row span attributes.